In a world where entertainment is viewed as mindless diversion, only good for momentary distraction, you are about to enter a new world, and you will never view entertainment in the same way again. This is Popcorn Theology.
Welcome, movie lovers and theology nerds, to episode 68 of Popcorn Theology. I'm Richard.
And I'm David. And this week we are finally getting into the Disney hit Zootopia.
Zootopia. I feel like you should cue like the apocalyptic music over the Popcorn Theology Facebook group. Yeah, something really...
Some like Lord of the Rings, Minas Morgul type score.
This is like the closest we're going to get to doing Game of Thrones.
Or Deadpool.
Yeah, we're embracing the controversy. This is as far as we go as with the kids movie. So it should be a lot of fun.
We can in good we'll get into whether we can in good conscience recommend this movie.
Up in the sky, look! It's a bird! It's a plane!
Cinemagog, The Marvelous Era. James Harleman here, the cinema guy, announcing the sequel to my first book on film and faith. Let's face it, entertainment has changed dramatically since the first book published in 2012, and comic book characters and franchises are everywhere. So I decided to set my sights on superheroes and examine the evolution of Hollywood in this follow-up to the first Cinemagog book. For example, what does Loki tell us about culture's view of God? Why does the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Infinity Saga continually align with biblical themes? In The Marvelous Era, I review each film and show not only how the individual movies express gospel parallels, but each phase essentially reveals a multi-point sermon. I also explore DC, Star Wars, the Monsterverse, and more. Without compromising scriptural truth, we can sift these stories and discover how we might reject, receive, and redeem ideas for personal reflection and Christian conversation. Also, has Hollywood's messaging gotten worse? The book explores ways these marvelous mythologies correspond with conversion, Christian living, church history, and Reformation, but I do also highlight what has been the entertainment industry's darker, indoctrinating decade, as well as toxic fandom and the dangers of immersion in pop culture that just might drown us spiritually if we're not careful. So suit up, assemble, and join me on a journey to the Infinity Saga and beyond. Cinemagog, The Marvelous Era. Now available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle editions.
Hey, this is David, and if you're listening to Popcorn Theology, it's probably because you're interested in theology or movies, or best of all, both. And that means that you're our kind of people, sharing common interests with our listeners and viewers as well. So why not partner with us and advertise your business or ministry right here on Popcorn Theology? We're looking for great, like-minded sponsors and offer reasonable rates with a variety of formats to get your message out. Remember, our fans aren't mindless consumers, so they'll give you thoughtful consideration. That's a big part of what we're all about here. So for more information on advertising with us, contact feedback@popcorntheology.com.
Was this your first time watching Zootopia in the last week or two?
It was. I watched it for the first time 3 days ago.
Okay.
So
a little bit late to the party.
Yeah, I know. I was putting it off.
Yeah. Well, we actually went on a very small family trip earlier in the year. We took the kids somewhere, and when we got to the hotel, the kids were like, we want to swim in the hotel pool. That's what we want to do.
Yeah.
We get there, and the hotel pool is non-existent because it is down for maintenance.
Oh.
So the kids were visibly upset. Like the clerk could tell when she said that. Like the kids were just defeated.
Oh, no.
What? They couldn't even. So they graciously did something to make up for that. They gave us, they had said, you can go on the TV in there and just pick a movie and watch it, and we'll take it off your bill when you come down tomorrow. And that'll be just a complimentary movie. But, hotels, I don't know if you've known this. I've never knew this till then. You can watch movies that are in theaters.
I did not know that.
In your hotel.
That is crazy.
Why can't we do that at home?
I don't.
Anyways, we watched Zootopia. All that
While
to say.
It was still in theaters.
Yeah, it was still in theaters.
That's awesome.
It was coming out of theaters within a month or two. But it was still in theaters. And we got to sit there and watch it on this comfy hotel bed and eat room service. And
nice.
It was way better than swimming in my book. But
yeah.
I think the kids still would have rather swum.
Rather than taking everyone to a movie theater and having to leave to go to the bathroom and missing 10 minutes.
And I keep wondering, why don't they do that with a game system or something? I've got an Xbox One. Xbox One could totally do that.
And you could have people pay full price. I mean, and they would.
I would pay more.
$15, $20 to see a
because,
movie.
You might be thinking, with tickets at a theater, you're getting however many people go.
Uh-huh.
So make it $30 to watch it at home.
Yeah.
And even if it's only two of you, it's still $30. I'll pay it.
Yeah.
I'll pay it to watch that movie at home with popcorn and stuff.
And maybe we'll go that route. Things are becoming more and more like customizable. Maybe that we'll eventually get there. That would be kind of neat.
It was a nice experience to watch the movie for the first time, though. Like,
Yeah.
rather than be at the theater with the kids and quiet down, we're in a movie theater. You can't throw popcorn at people. You know, crazy. Don't kick that seat. Like all that stuff. You know, none of that.
I'm curious. Were you able to put on subtitles? Because I know you like subtitles.
I think, you know, I'm gonna say we were only because we do like subtitles, and I would remember if we couldn't.
Yeah.
I don't remember it being an issue, so I'm gonna say yes.
But even if you couldn't, I mean, that's still a good deal.
Still a good deal. Yeah. But subtitles are important in the Foltz household.
Yeah.
We need subtitles,
Especially if there's a lot of background noise with, say, 4 children.
Let's say like 4 kids. Yeah, something like that.
It's a number off the top of my head.
Might make it hard to pay attention to something. Yeah, I've gotten used to them though too. Even without kids, like at work when there's nothing going on and there's something on TV, I want the subtitles on. You pick up on stuff.
Yeah.
My reco for the week: put subtitles on, even if you've never done that. Like you will pick up on dialogue you never caught before that actually does matter sometimes.
Yes.
Or they'll spell a word a certain way and you'll get a joke you didn't get before. Like, oh, they're making a reference to something. I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
But in the subtitles, they spell it like the thing they're trying to make fun of. You know, I don't know if that makes sense, but you'll get it if you see it. It actually is helpful.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. I mean, subtitles are essential, especially if, you know, for certain shows too. Like I can't watch Breaking Bad without subtitles because so much of the dialogue takes place at such a low register for the dramatic build of it, which I get, but I also am like cranking my TV to like max volume and then it cuts to commercial and like my speakers explode. I mean,
Maybe we're just getting old.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know why people complain. I like the subtitle. Movies are too quiet. I can't hear a thing. So yeah, Zootopia. What did you think?
I like it. I like the movie. It's very well made. It's very brightly colored. The voice acting is on point. The storyline is actually deep for a kid's movie, which is good because sometimes that's not the case. Although less and less is that so. Usually, even kid movies nowadays have something
very heavy.
You watch Finding Dory and you want to cry yourself to sleep for a few nights afterwards and things like that. But they did a very, very good job. It's a controversial flick for reasons we'll get into.
Yeah.
I think watching it the second time and talking a little bit before we record with you, I'm more tempered than I was.
Okay.
I think if we had recorded this a week ago and like there was just some reason why I couldn't watch it again, and I'm like, well, let's just do it, I probably would have like lambasted this movie. And now it's just like I'm gonna have some reservations.
Sure.
Rather than this movie is a piece of propaganda.
Are you saying I talked you down? Is that
a little bit?
A little bit.
A tiny bit. I'm not all the way off the ledge.
You're not on the edge, but you're still like...
I'm like 10 feet back from the edge, still looking at the edge.
Your feet are dangling.
Yes.
But you're not standing on the edge,
Right.
at least. So that's something. For listeners who maybe don't know what's going on, maybe you have some listeners who aren't in the group, because I've had a number of the guys in my student group mention this movie and ask me for an episode on it. So if you're from the Church of Martinsburg student group, what's up? And for others who maybe aren't familiar, in the Facebook group Popcorn Theology, which you should check out, there's some good conversation going on around this movie. Some controversial stuff that we're going to get into
Certain
about
are
what
lightning rods.
lessons the movie has for viewers. And I would actually be very fascinated, especially if people from the group, from the student group, wanted to weigh in, because they're closer to the target age than we are. And so I'd like to know maybe what they took away from it. So that would be fun to have if you're on Facebook and you're willing to weigh in on that. The overall lesson of the movie, I think, is fairly clear, but the question is, what are the tangential lessons? But as we address this, I mean, and I don't want to try and dictate too much of this because I know that there's a lot of different ways to go about it. It's important to, I think, go ahead and mention that we're talking about a story about a bunny rabbit, a fox, and a bunch of other cute animals.
So we feel silly when we have a problem.
No. What I'm saying is we're talking about a fable or an allegory at the very most.
Right.
We're talking about a story that you can apply to real world situations. But a lot of times the conversation gets a little heated when people are applying it differently. And I think that's kind of the resolution, if you can call it that seemed to come about in a lot of these online conversations. It's what's the lesson that's being taught and how is that lesson being applied in the real world? And that's where I think this is a great film for this type of discussion, because, you know, week after week, we come here and we overanalyze movies, admittedly. We get into them a lot. And some people maybe roll their eyes at how much we dive into the stories. I would say we do it to an appropriate degree. In this movie, I think
A totally inappropriate degrie.
inappropriate. I said appropriate. But
I'm just trying to play devil's advocate on everything today. Yeah.
it's fun to do. But I think in this case, this is a good example of how a movie can potentially be propaganda, good or bad propaganda.
Right.
Propaganda can be good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a loaded word that we tend to associate with bad things. It can be propaganda while still having a good message. Anyway, that was just sort of my preface. Remember, we're talking about a movie about fuzzy animals and then applying it to the real world. So in many ways, this is what we do every week when we talk about movies about, space cowboys or time traveling astronauts or superheroes or wizards and hobbits. It's just, this is a different medium for that and maybe a more overt take-home message.
My preface will be, I'm going to have some reservations about certain aspects of what the message might be with this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So if this is your first episode, realize that I'm usually abundantly positive.
Oh, yes.
We say don't be mindless consumers. I think part of that, sometimes you're going to walk away and go, man, that just felt weird. Something was off about that. And you think about it more, and sometimes you might realize, oh no, there was a good message there, and I just wasn't really thinking it through it very clearly. It just kind of struck me the wrong way. But sometimes there really is. We've acknowledged a few times in the past, this part of it's bad. Like what it's preaching here is bad in X movie. So I think we're going to agree and disagree in different parts between the two of us about what parts of this are good or bad. But those are good conversations, and it's okay for the other person you're talking to be wrong. That's fine. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. These are the good conversations to have.
Yeah.
Like when you're not being a mindless consumer, you're going to come to different mindful conclusions sometimes. And, one might be right, one might be wrong. They might neither be right or wrong. They might be completely up to the eye of the beholder in certain cases. But they're good conversations to have. So my recommendation, especially in our group, is if you disagree about something that you think is important in this movie, you don't got to get like all, let's go storm the beaches and kill people over it.
Yeah.
Like you can talk about it and say, this is my concerns with it. You didn't get that concern. Why not?
Yeah.
And then when they say the reasons why not, even if you still disagree, you can be like, okay, well, that's not what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
That's amazing that we got such different views. Okay, have a good day. Like, that's all you need to do. It's not, I think we might be doing Firefly in the near future. Can we take a vote on the murdering people?
Yeah.
Is something that Wash would say. We don't need to go all out war because we disagree about, as David said, a bunny movie with foxes and nudist animals and
Tommy Chong.
It's just, it gets too much. It gets to be too much. And that's part of why I wasn't sure if we should even do this movie. We've kind of we stayed away from it.
We've avoided Game of Thrones and Deadpool.
And
really
we're maintaining. I can't, my goodness. Can you imagine if we did Game of Thrones now?
No, I can't.
Just imagine it.
Because I can't imagine watching Game of Thrones.
No, I can't either.
No. That's the thing. If either of us are viewers, then I could imagine it. Neither of us are.
Shots fired. I might watch it on VidAngel one day. True story. I might. I'm working through the ethics in my mind of whether or not that's okay. But if I come to that conclusion, it could happen.
Fair enough.
Because I know it's a good show. I can't justify it. Anyways, just imagine.
So before we dive into the depths of it, superficially, you already mentioned the animation and the story. I think that the animation was incredible.
Beautiful.
I was blown away. Certain parts of it looked really real, which is surprising to me. Obviously the animals, not so much, but like the scenes, the vehicles, the backdrops, I mean, everything that was happening there, just like, wow, that was really, really well done, but understated. It wasn't like, it looked really elaborate for the sake of the story. It was just like, no, they just did a really good job with that tree over there and that car and everything in this, the different environments that they played with the different habitats for the animals. I was just like, wow, that's really cool. Like,
I think it's a part of that same legacy that started. I don't know. I never fact checked this, but I've been told that when they wanted to make Tangled, there were certain things that they needed to figure out how to do software wise, technology wise, to make the hair, to make it look the way they wanted it to look. Yeah. And I've heard it said, maybe someone can fact check me, that Bolt, part of the reason for the making of Bolt was testing out some of that sort of technology. And then they basically made a story around it, made a movie for it. So Bolt, Tangled, Frozen, I'm sure there's other movies in there too. But it's in that line. And you can see the progression of how it's gotten a little bit better every time, as far as the imaging is concerned.
Yeah.
As far as the way it looks, it's gotten just a little bit better every time. It's a beautiful movie.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how you render every little tiny speck of, God numbers the hair on our head. I want to know how the animators numbered the hair on that rabbit. Like, I don't,
Oh yeah.
my
Everything.
goodness.
And everything has hair because it's all mammals.
Yeah.
I mean, and so
That's hard to do.
is dealing with a lot of hair to animate. I mean, more than Tangled in many ways, because you got so many individual characters. And I mean, from an animation perspective, this was just a breathtaking movie. I also thought the voice acting was really on point. Was it Jennifer Goodwin? I've only seen her like one movie, but I thought she did a great job.
When I watch Zootopia, it makes me want to go back and catch back up on Once Upon a Time, even though I know it's so downhill. But she was excellent in the first season of that, and then she's just kind of there afterwards for no reason. It suffers from a lot of that just filler syndrome. But she's excellent in that show. If you haven't watched that at all,
no,
watch the first season. It's good.
All right.
You're
like, see, now why don't I believe you?
Yeah, the rest of them, I mean, you might want to continue watching it. Just know it's gonna have crazy downs and then like small little ups. But she's excellent, and I think voice acting might be her thing. Like, she did a great job in this.
And that's the surprising thing. A lot of times they'll pick actors that are big names, and then they're okay at voice acting. Like they make them do a good job because they have to. This is an enormous project. We can't afford for you to screw this up. So while Ellen DeGeneres might not be trained in any way as a voice actor, she's great as Dory because they make her do a really good job, and she puts a lot into it. But in the case of these characters, it's fun to see them outside of their normal roles. Like even Jason Bateman, I was expecting to think of Arrested Development every time he says something, that he's talking to George Michael or something in every scene. But no, I bought into him as the voice of that character. And that was the amazing thing, I think. Also Idris Elba. Maybe my favorite character was whatever his character's name was. The Cape Buffalo. That was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. He's excellent. He is excellent.
But yeah, on a superficial level, I think it was enjoyable. And also the story. Is it just me, or after like the first maybe 15, 20 minutes, it didn't feel like you're watching a kid's movie at all?
Yeah.
Am I the only one who felt like that? I was like, I feel like I'm completely engaged in this 100% like PG-13 adult movie, not because it's inappropriate, but because the story is dynamic and they're not adding in, well, they did add in some jokes for the sake of making jokes, but I feel like the meat of the story was very mature, and I was just kind of surprised how much so. I felt the same way about Inside Out. Maybe it's just because I'm paying more attention to kids movies now than I used to.
Yeah.
But, I just was kind of taken aback at how engaging it was and how much kids still seem to respond to it and love it.
I almost, in my head, when I watched this, I thought this is Crash for children.
Everyone's a little bit racist.
Right.
Sometimes.
Like, I feel like it's Crash for like, because it's dealing with these differences that people have. And it's dealing with how we get through them and how we should acknowledge them or not, or are there differences?
That's a really good point.
It's very, and you must even have like different characters' stories kind of weaving in and out, although there is a main character in Zootopia. Yeah. But it's interesting. I feel like they're doing something similar here.
Yeah. Wow. That's a really good point. In case you're curious, we did do an episode on Flash. And I'm sorry, Crash. we haven't done an episode on Flash yet. I'm tired. We haven't done an episode on Flash yet, but one day Richard will catch up with Flash and we'll
need to watch it.
Crash. I don't remember which episode number it is, but check it out. It's, again, two white guys in West Virginia settle, we address all of the problems of racism.
Yeah, racism is gone. We
figured it out, guys. It's cool. We got it settled.
I don't think they can see my eye roll over
it
the
doesn't
microphone,
translate.
so my eye's rolling, so we didn't settle anything, but we talked about it. It was fun.
Yeah, it's fun
to say fun. It almost feels wrong to call it.
It was
fun.
a blast. Yeah,
it was a blast. It was excellent.
A much less fun. The movie itself was a much less fun treatise on racism than Zootopia is. Yeah. We'll put it that way.
Right. I think what Zootopia did that's interesting is it took how we deal with stereotypes and how we deal with, like, sometimes those stereotypes turn out to be true in an experience, in a specific experience. This is the stereotype of foxes, and this fox acted that way, and so you see that happen. But they're doing it like it's not real people groups, so they can play with that, without it being offensive. Imagine if they had done that with what we actually have as stereotypes with human beings.
Oh yeah.
As like an adult movie or something. Like it would be very controversial. But they're able to just say, oh, you know, this is what they do. This is what they do. Even making jokes about their own, you know, we multiply well, like making jokes about your own culture, your own people and things like that. It's interesting how they're able to pull that off.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, we're already getting into the message of the movie because it's really inescapable. I mean, it's pretty overt in what the movie is about. But I guess in a single word, or maybe two words, what would you say is the central theme of the movie Zootopia?
The central theme, I think it has a lot of applications, but I think the central theme, if I just had to make a stab at it out of nowhere here, would be that prejudice exists and what can we do about it?
Yeah.
What can we do about it? I think, and this is where we might get into like some deeper conversation, is I think it applies that idea in some good ways. And I think there's some points where it at least hints at applying them in some ways that I might not be as comfortable with. We'll probably talk about that in a little bit more in depth, but I think that's the big point of it is, you know, we have certain things in common, but as different people groups, different people, even within those groups, we have things that are not in common. And there are certain things that we're going to feel towards other people groups. And what do you do about it?
Yeah.
What do you do?
I think you're right on as far as it being prejudice. I threw you under the bus there with that question. No warning on that, by the way. I think that if we had to sum it up in a single word, that word would be prejudice and why it exists, like you said, being the main takeaway. And from what I've heard, the filmmakers set out to make that story. It's why does this prejudice exist? Not does it, and you know, we're going to make the case to the viewer that it does. We're going to, or that it's even wrong. We're not going to try and make that case because again, that would be a pretty disinteresting movie. But why it exists, it's meant to address that, and I think it does a pretty good job of that. But again, I say that with some caveats and some slight reservations as we go forward, because again, but at the same time, it seems to be a pretty nuanced story. It doesn't seem to say that all prejudice is from this side to this side, and it's all because of X, Y, Z, and all stereotypes are, you know, completely ill-founded and are part of a larger conspiracy. I think that they do a good job representing a pretty nuanced and realistic approach that, yeah, like in the opening scene or one of the opening scenes, there's a fox that treats, what's the lead character's name again? Judy Hopps. That treats Judy badly and addresses the fact that I'm a predator, you're a prey. The stereotype of foxes clearly exists in her mind for a reason because of him. What she has to do is she has to then overcome that stereotype and how she interacts with foxes in the future, which I think, you know, no matter where you grow up with some sort of stereotypes that society has for people. And the fact that we shouldn't let those stereotypes affect the way that we interact in the future, I think is very important. And in this case, the emphasis seems to be racial stereotypes, at least. Yeah. It seems to be the
bulk of the movie. I think that argument can be made pretty soundly.
Yes.
I wanted to talk a little bit about what the word prejudice actually means. And I just looked it up because I wanted to actually be able to read exactly what it says because I wasn't sure. And I'm just wondering, how did it become this? Because if you think about like the way the word prejudice is made up, it sounds like it's just the linking of words that mean before judging. Right? I mean, is there something in prejudice that means it has to be negative? Like I prejudge that a doctor's a better person to do surgery on me than David is.
Oh yeah, that's definitely true.
Right. But, and would that be, I'm prejudging.
Is that innately
I would have
immoral?
Thought,
no, absolutely
right.
not.
And I would have thought in a technical sense that's still prejudice. I'm still prejudging.
Just like discriminating is not
right.
Innately
that's what I would have
an
thought.
Immoral act.
I looked up
a qualified act.
I looked up the definition that we use today. Now, see, the thing is, you can't go to Webster to get your idea of what a word means.
No.
I really think, I don't know, someone correct me about the word, but it sounds like it just means to prejudge. But the definition we have in English is preconceived opinion that is not based on reason or actual experience.
Huh.
I'm wondering when that evolved, probably because we use the word in a more negative sense now. I think we start to import additional things onto words sometimes.
Well, it's possible.
I bet if I looked up discriminate, it would say something similar. And
well, sometimes even the base words behind a word that we use don't fully express the word. They're just, that's how
Right.
words are assembled. They're an amalgamation of other roots and prefixes and suffixes. And so it could be that in its original, use, prejudice was meant to be negative, but the only way to put a word like that together is to use those pieces, perhaps.
Yeah.
Again, not a linguist here, just
No.
trying my hand at it, I guess, apparently.
And I guess this is where I start to, question certain applications of this film, because I think prejudice against someone based on something like the color of their skin or their, depending on what we're talking about, their age
Their
and things like that,
nationality,
would be wrong and unjust. But is it always unjust to have a prejudice against something or someone for a specific reason? Based on that definition, I'd say it is. And so if we're going to go with their definition, which I think we should, because that's what's the accepted definition, that's wrong.
Sure.
So I guess what I'm looking at is I think they are painting with a very broad brush in this movie that all preconceived notions about anyone are wrong. And it seems to me like they might be disregarding that there might be good reason for some sort of prejudging of a group of people or persons. Sounds terrible when I'm saying it like that.
Yeah, it kind of does.
It sounds terrible when I'm saying it like that. If you were born a woman, you're a woman.
Okay.
Right? And I'm going to prejudge that you are.
Not me personally.
Right.
But
like that's just what you are. If you're born a man, you're a man. Like I'm going to prejudge that you are what you were made, and that is the case. And I think I have reason for doing that.
Your biology actually
Right.
indicates something about your personhood beyond just which bathroom beyond just which
Right.
chromosomes you have, to put it
Right.
in a vanilla way.
And I feel like a movie like this, if it was taken just on face value, and if you just took it the way it is, I think it could be saying, because there's disunity, then there should be no differences at all between people. Everybody should be exactly the same, which I wouldn't agree with. I think there are distinctions between certain types of people and certain other types.
You might want to qualify that for our listeners.
Right. And hear me out. I'm
going to get you out of some hot water here real
Right.
quick by asking you to clarify.
You know
that
what I
statement.
mean by that.
I know what you mean.
Listeners might
I know
not.
what you mean.
So, I was not born tall or athletically gifted. And could I have trained really hard and maybe done it? I wasn't born with the mind that really wanted to do that, or the body that was going to be. So
It's not your propensity.
It's not my
Right.
propensity. And so I'm not to say that I should be given equal credence as Michael Jordan when it comes to basketball would be crazy. You're going to prejudge if I said I'm as important about basketball as Michael Jordan is. You're going to prejudge that that's wrong.
Right.
No, that's not true. Because the way I'm look at me. No, that's not the case. That's absolutely not the case. So I think there's differences that matter between people, and sometimes between people groups. I think there's difference that matter, especially between men and women, and we can't just throw those aside completely. But I think that's part of the narrative that you're seeing today is they're linking that on with the very right moral statement that you shouldn't judge people based on the color of their skin or superficial things that you have no reason to judge people based on there. And I feel like it's almost saying, and since that was wrong, and we used to think it was okay to treat people harshly for that reason, so it's true of this, this, and this.
Right.
Well, it doesn't necessarily follow. It doesn't necessarily follow that because that was wrong, that it's now wrong to say because you were born a man that you should identify as a man, or you should whatever it might be.
Sure.
There's certain just truths, like things could just objectively be true, and then it just is what it is.
Right. Truth is truth. I mean, and I think that's.
To be fair, I took that strongly away from the movie at first, and having rewatched watched the movie again, rewatched a few scenes with you and talked about it a little bit, I really think it's more of a very subtle sub-thread at this point.
Yeah.
That's just there, and because the culture accepts that at this point anyway, it's just there. It just happens to be there.
I think this is a really good example of the way that we can read into movies differently, and this is why we encourage people to not be mindless consumers. On partly because we mentioned it like 10 times already in this episode, but this is a great example of why people are generally not going to approach something mindlessly. They're just going to approach it in a lazy sense. They're going to think about it, but they're not going to think maybe as deeply as they should about it. This is a really great exercise in thinking more deeply about this. I think that the timing and the context is really important here. If this movie had come out in the late 60s, early 70s, it would be unquestioned that this is simply about race.
Right. because
it would be shocking that the animation was so good, but
they would first they would go, what?
Mind blown.
How did they make this rabbit talk? And then they would go, well, this is about race now. After we get over that. I agree with you. And at that time, it wouldn't have been so accepted to even try to argue for some of the things that I think might be a sub-thread being argued for in this movie.
Right.
They wouldn't even consider that might be something you would argue for, so they're not going to see that. Mm-hmm. They would just be lost at whatever.
Sure.
That has nothing to do with this.
And I think that, again, the time and the context is all really important here. If we had even if we had an animation studio that wasn't Disney making this movie, we might not approach it with the same sort of reactions as Christians. But again, the timing, if it was in the 60s following the civil rights movement, it would be pretty clear what the statement was about. If it was in the early 90s following some of the stuff that was happening as far as racial tension of the 90s, I think that it would be pretty clear. I mean, I would argue that there's enough racial tension now to warrant saying that this should be considered the focus because of the current events. However, we also have this additional movement of the what can best be summarized as the LGBT, et cetera. LGBT ETC.
I always say LGBTK thanks bye movement because there's too many letters.
There's so many letters.
I can't keep track of all these letters you people add to this, but right.
But this, what do you mean you people?
I knew that was coming. I did the same thing with Crash. I can't help but say you people when we talk about these things. I'm sorry.
We're so bad at this.
Yep.
No, it's funny. But no, absolutely. This, and the thing about this movement is that it does parody the civil rights movement. In fact, it tries to make gay marriage, transgender bathrooms, and or transgender rights in other scenarios like locker rooms and public scenarios and, XYZ into civil rights issues. And it tries to conflate the two. And that's where I think we as Christians are importing our, and not even inappropriately, but we're importing that sort of worldview clash into a movie like Zootopia, where normally we would maybe, not normally, but where a non-believer who maybe is less concerned with or spending less time emphasizing these cultural battles, they may not take that away from this. And I'd be curious to hear from from listeners who maybe didn't take that away, because, and it's not to say only non-believers. I think some Christians can be less plugged in and not take that away as well. But I know what my tendency was when I watched this movie, and it was pretty similar to yours. I tend to fall on the defensive a lot. And so if a movie or a show seems to be in opposition to a view that I hold, I have this very quick defensive recoil away from it that I have to actively fight against in order to try and give it a fair shake. And Zootopia was a really great example of that for me, because I did the exact same thing you did, which is, whoa, anybody can be anything? Right. Hold on. What exactly are you saying here? And obviously a lot of people in the group felt the same way. I would say that, like you, maybe that's become less clear to me that was the goal because of the remainder of the movie, because that happened mid-film. The rest of the movie progressed, and I think that there's a good case that not only because the filmmaker said so, but because the story cogently ties in race or species, not gender, right, into the key aspect of what's being discussed. I would say that that's the more important lesson. Now, can it be applied to those issues? Absolutely. Can you watch X-Men and assume that it's about gay rights? Yes,
you can.
100%.
Says so.
Yes,
yes, you can,
and that's even less overt than Zootopia.
Right.
But I think that it's just important to recognize that, because our fellow believers didn't take the movie with that same thing, that they're not necessarily heathens who don't care about what their children view and are okay with same-sex marriage and things like that.
Yeah, that's definitely not the case. I'll say this, and it's not just Zootopia. I think Zootopia, one of the reasons it's controversial is because it was a very greatly well-made movie, so beautiful, and kids love it. And so when it seems to have a couple of lines that feel like it's clearly saying something like that, even if it's not a main focus, I can see where someone might go, oh man, my kids love this movie, and here they are hearing this. They're watching it 8 times a day, because that's what kids do.
Yeah, and it's on Netflix.
8 times a day, a person being told you can be anything you want to be, even if it makes no sense at all. You can be it. So I get the concern. I'll just say I get the concern. I don't share it. My kids watch Zootopia. And I've talked with them about, can a little fox be an elephant? No.
Sure.
A little Judy's wrong. And, and I would never tell you kids that you can just be anything you want to be. I actually think that's like not a good thing to tell someone. They should be told they can be whatever God says they can be. And God hasn't said that fox can be an elephant, and God doesn't say certain people can be other certain kinds of people. So on that level, I get the concern. I agree with you now at this point. I think it's mostly speaking to racial prejudice and things like that. But I think we can separate that because we understand that they are two very different issues. But I don't think our culture at large understands that's two very separate issues. I think they think that's the same issue.
Absolutely.
That's all the same issue to them. So you have that. And then I think you do have, like I'm saying, kids that are hearing it over and over again. If they just decide I want to be X and X is something they can't be, just rationally. And then you have to explain to them, no, you can't do that. If your kid says, I just really want to be Superman, you're not going to take them to the top of the building and say, jump off. You can fly. Yeah. There's a realm of realism you need to have there.
And when you say they can't be, you have a standard to apply to that. And that's the important difference. You're not saying, well, no, you can't be based on purely your preferences and your preconceptions.
Right.
It's based on, in the case of what I know you're referring to, biology.
Right.
It's a dirty word in this movie as well.
Right.
Interesting for me as a biology professor to hear biology be the trigger word.
Yeah.
Not at all dissimilar from many cultural conversations today, which I thought was fascinating. It's what you take away from it. And again, there's so much to get into in this movie that people are going to maybe walk away with different.
They're going to walk away with different things. I want to share my biggest gripe and hear what you have to say about it, because this isn't even my biggest gripe with the movie.
Wait, the one that we've already addressed isn't your biggest?
We haven't addressed my biggest gripe with the movie.
Okay.
My biggest gripe with the movie is early on in the film, this little rabbit says she wants to be a police officer, and her parents are not supportive of that, really. That's cute, but no. And you know what you should do? We settled and we're happy. And you should just settle like we did and just be a carrot farmer. That helps people. And they care for their child. They don't want their child to get hurt. They don't think that's an appropriate job for their child to take because they think she's not suited for it. But to me, watching those scenes, and especially seeing the way the parents are kind of shown throughout it, they love their child and you should somewhat respect them. But what they say doesn't super matter because they come from a different time. And if you really feel like you can do something, you can, whether your parents say that makes sense or not. And I could see my kids walking away from that going, well, mom and dad said I can't, do what, I don't know. I'm trying to think of an easy example.
Sure.
But, they love me and they want the best, but I know better and I can.
Yeah.
And in the context of this film, she's right. She could. So like I've never heard of it, and it wouldn't be a good film probably where the parents said you can't, and then that proved to be true. Like that'd be a great film to me though. As a dad, I want that film to happen.
That would be reality. That would be
what I liked about it. It was very clear these parents are loving parents. They love their child, and to me, it almost felt like a cultural narrative being made there. Of we're coming out of an ethic as a culture that's one way, and we're going a new direction, and don't be too harsh with those people that are kind of judging us for this new direction we're going in. They're saying you can't do this. This is wrong or whatever. Don't be too harsh with them. They love you. They're trying to do what's best for you, but they're wrong. So just pat them on the head and move on and do your thing. That's the message I take from it as an adult. A kid's not going to get that, but a kid might get your parents can be wrong. Well, and even if they can, and you should judge for yourself because you know better than they do. That's the danger that I see there. And I've seen it in a bunch of other, Little Mermaid did the same thing. I want to be part of their world. Well, you can't. You can't be part of their world. Well, I'm doing it anyway. Yeah. And at least in that, there's some bad things take place.
There's some
for Ariel. There's some negative consequences there. I don't know.
I would say there are some consequences here as well, but and I see what you're saying. It's definitely a cultural commentary, especially if you consider the fact that one, they're farmers.
Yes.
Two, they're in a rural community.
Yes.
And they seem just to be in general. I mean, we have movement from a city, just a small town girl, if you will, taking the midnight train, going anywhere. She ends up in a city. I mean, and there's this sort of cultural commentary that the city is superior in some ways, that it's better in some ways. What I think is almost an interesting subversion is when she's doing her school play. It seems that when she is sharing things that she learned in her school play with the reporters later on in the movie, that she's actually informing them as if they don't know. I'm like, wait a second. Are you saying that the backwoods dumb bunny that was raised on these backwards values actually knows more about biology, history, and the reasons behind things than the city folk. That's different. I mean, and that's what I took away from it. I might be reading too much into that, but they certainly seemed to be, she seemed to be informing them on it. But again, we'll get to that scene.
Yeah, we'll get
later,
to that too. With that same scene though, with the play, and it kind of ties in what I'm saying about the parents. It seemed very quickly moving to the I think it was the fox calling out, "You can't be a police officer. You're a bunny." And she has like this, "You're wrong, and I can be anything I want." And like there's this speech, and it feels very heavy-handed at that point. He's got overalls on, and he's speaking in a country accent.
Oh yeah.
"You can't do that, you're a rabbit." And she's like, "Well, you're wrong, dumb fox over here. That's a country fox, and I'm right about this." It just feels very like certain stereotypes from our world that they did import, I think, are telling.
Yeah.
In a way.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So.
And the fox one, it's actually interesting you point that out, because it seems they were going two different directions with
foxes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Foxes are a bad stereotype wherever they are, but for very different reasons.
Exactly. Two bad different stereotypes. And if we were to try and conflate them, which we probably shouldn't do, with particular ethnic groups, then we're mixing foxes with more than one. But again, it's culturally, it's a movie about, they had to make it work with foxes to where she has a reason to think that foxes behave a certain way because her experience told her that. But no, I can see that concern, and that's something that you get. I mean, and I could certainly even see why a number of Disney movies portray it that way, because in general, you don't have a lot of really strong parents in Disney films that are revered. The Lion King being one exception that comes to mind. I'm sure that there are more, but for the most part, the parents are either absent or they are they're either absent, they're distant, meaning that they're barely active, or they are like this. They're a hindrance, and I think that that's certainly not beneficial. And I'm sure I'll feel differently about that when my son is more than a year old and is paying more attention to those narratives. So I could definitely see that concern. I did think it was interesting though that her behavior later on in the movie did incite some change in the parents. Which I thought was interesting. And they sort of brought that whole story with the initial fox, that his name is completely escaping me, to some sort of resolution where he apologizes for the way that he treated her when they were younger.
Just a jerk.
He was a jerk when he was a kid, but you know what? He's improved himself. He's not ignorant anymore. And he ultimately actually shares a piece of information that ends up saving the entire city. He gets no credit for, of course, but
that's true life too, isn't it?
Yeah. There's a fair bit of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that the question of whether or not she's suited for it though, and that's something that I've heard in some of these discussions, is that, well, it's ridiculous. A bunny can't be a police officer. Well, hold on. Let's look at the standard for that, because we think that, sure. But by that same token, is it because she's a prey? What's the word? They call them predators and prey at one point in the movie, but she's an herbivore, basically. She's a plant eater. If you look at the majority, not the majority, but quite a few of the ZPD, quite a few of them are actually plant eaters as well. Most notably being her captain, who is voiced by Idris Elba. So it doesn't seem that there's any hindrance on the part of being traditionally a prey item. Is it because of her size? Well, she's not the only she's the smallest, but when she does the obstacle course, she actually excels at it in many ways. And they show a montage of her excelling at the training for being a police officer. The one scene where she's given her badge made me think it seemed to smack a little bit of some sort of like, I hesitate to use the phrase affirmative action.
Yeah, it definitely did.
At the same time, I'm
in the
torn
context
on that.
of the movie,
did
she
it or
earned
did
it.
it not? She seemed to earn it.
She seemed to earn it, but they made a big ta-da out of it.
Yes, it seemed
which
more
is
like
what
a publicity
can happen.
stunt
Yeah.
than affirmative action,
Right.
which I thought was okay. I'm
Right.
more on board with this.
I don't think they'd want to put forward that narrative anyway.
Right,
In the context of this film, that would be a bad narrative to put forward with why they did it. I guess part of me, when I see that, so in the context of the film, it's a cartoon, so it worked out, and she was able to do the obstacle course. So we could look at it and say, by that standard, they didn't have to lower the standards at all. She actually did it, and so she can be a cop. I'm cool with that. On another level, though, there had never been one ever.
Sure.
Her parents are telling her it's a bad idea. That's not a job for you. That's not a job you should do because of who you are. You're just made this way. You shouldn't do that. And in the context of the film, we find out, okay, they were wrong. But could they have been right? Or is there ever a time where a certain job or role is inappropriate for a certain being just because of who they are? And I feel like this movie, if you're going to look at this movie, you have to say no. Sure. Anyone can do anything, which is said numerous times. Anyone can literally do anything they want to do.
When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. It's not exactly a new theme with this. No, that's like what, a 60-year-old story that is
honestly, to me, it's a very, I don't want to rag on millennials because I think we are millennials technically.
We are technically millennials. I know, it's a downer.
Okay. Well,
we need our safe space to
rag
cry
on ourselves
about that.
then, I guess. Yeah. But I think it's a very millennial thing to think. Like, we were raised saying, you could be president. You can be anything you want to be. You can, and I think in a sense that can be a good thing to help a kid realize if I apply myself, I really can do a lot more than I think. And anything could happen, sure. But I think there's an unhealthy way to spin that even further and say, you can do anything you want. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise based on anything.
Yeah.
At all. You can do exactly what you manifest whatever you want, which I think is an unhealthy application of that. And I think this film walks the line between healthy and unhealthy with that. There's some senses which I would say, yeah, even though you're little, if you really give yourself to something, you could do something that maybe a bigger person's more suited for.
Yeah.
Sure. So in that sense, it's healthy, but I think it's walking that line on the unhealthy side too of what you want to do is what matters and you can do anything and just disregard everybody else.
Right.
I think you also see her entitlement issues because she gets there, and I've seen this at work, so I can speak to this. You are on parking duty. We have these cases to do, but you're going to do that because you're new here.
Yeah.
And she has this, but I'm an officer. You can't give me that job. You have to give me an important job. So I think you even see in her character, she does have a little bit of entitlement. Sure. I think they even acknowledge that there. She has this kind of a little bit of entitlement. I've earned this. I'm a real officer now. I don't have to pay my dues or anything. I can just go straight to doing what I want to do. Yeah. What my dream is. I shouldn't have to do this thing. It's not my dream. It's not my dream to do parking tickets. Now, to be fair, she does channel that into, well, I'm going to do an extra good job at that.
Which was cool to see.
Cool to see.
Except that she's citing people. But
she's citing people, and I'm not
within
sure
the law. Blah,
I'm
blah,
not
blah.
sure how I feel about her making a quota on how many she has to do and everything. That's an interesting.
It was good to see work ethic at least, right?
Yeah, it was good to see work ethic. Every compliment I have for the movie, I have a reservation with. Compliment. It is. It's a love-hate relationship with this flick. But I think you see she's kind of an entitled character, and I think it's part of that mindset she has that if I want it, I can do it, and I should be allowed to do it, and it doesn't matter what it is.
Right, and I think that's almost, and I hate to paint in such broad strokes, but I think that's almost the sort of baby boomer to Generation X to millennial generation shift that we have from I can do anything that I want to do. I can be whatever. Yeah, I can be anything that I want to be. To I deserve anything I want.
Right.
Which is now where we're at in so many ways. This sort of entitlement mentality that no, just by virtue of existing, I have certain rights. These rights include, I don't know the Constitution, but I know enough to say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, you're getting in the way of my pursuit of happiness. And it's really easy to pick on millennials. It's almost low-hanging fruit, and I really don't want to do it because I think that it's a shame that our culture is in such a caricatured state right now. But agreed that it does point to and comment on that sort of entitlement mentality. I mean, does everybody get to be a professional athlete, a musician? To quote Tyler Durden, we were raised by thinking about, we were raised by movies and TV to think that we were all going to be millionaires and movie stars and rock gods, but we won't. And we're slowly learning that fact.
Right.
Some people are going to have to work at McDonald's. Some people are going to have to sweep the floor. Some people are going to have to be janitors. And you know what? I think that's noble. I think that, the work ethic is severely de-emphasized in our society. And I think that I was honored and pleasured enough to be raised with a work ethic that was strong, that allowed me to find joy in even the crappiest jobs. And that's not to pat myself on the back. That's to pat my parents on the back for raising me that way. But not everybody is raised that way, and not everybody has that emphasized to them. And that's really, I think, very sad. But anyway, I'm veering a bit off topic, and I apologize. But I think that she, in this context, has earned the right to do what she does. And that's the distinction. She wanted it, but she also fought for it, which is noble. And I think that that's something to be admired, and maybe something that kids can even look up to. Because I know that we can go to the places where, what is this movie really trying to say to our children? But it's important to say, you know what, maybe we need to make sure that our kids know that there aren't limitations on them. Fortunately, society tells them that in every single cartoon that they encounter. But anyway, so among the other themes that we see here, I mean, again, it's all sort of circled around this idea of prejudice. One of the characters that is pretty actively involved in this is Nick the fox.
Excellent character too.
Oh yeah, so well done. I mean, he's a con man. He's sly as a fox. And we eventually come to find out why. And from what I understand, the original script was meant to be focused on him rather than on the bunny. But I think the switch worked very well, but they still made him an important character. We get this flashback to when he is essentially discriminated against, for lack of a better word, as a child because he is a fox. These friends of his that are herbivores don't trust him. They don't. They've been told and taught, if you will, that he is not trustworthy, that he might attack you. This sort of outdated mentality that he's not trustworthy just based on his race or his species. And eventually that's led to him saying, if the world will only see a fox as sly and untrustworthy, then that's what they'll get. And he sort of resigned himself to that. I think that there's something there probably for some conversation in the group about an application to our lives. Is it possible that maybe we'll say, well, if people are only going to see me as XYZ, that's all they're going to get. I think that there may be a case for some groups of people to go that route and say, look, if I've been treated as such, I'm just going to become what I am viewed as, because what's the point of you?
They're going to treat me that way, whether I am or not.
Yeah.
So I might as well get the benefits of being that way.
I think it's funny that you mentioned Crash earlier, because there's a character in Crash who takes that in a much darker sense and applies it. Ludacris, the character played by Ludacris, basically says very similar things.
Yeah.
Who thought that there would be some tie-ins between those movies?
There's a lot of similarities, honestly. I kept thinking about it. I'm like, this is Crash. I mean, it's the same sort of situation.
But it's funny because there seems to be a reason, we already mentioned, for the other fox having mistreated I keep wanting to say Lola Bunny, and I know that's not right.
Judy Hopps.
Judy, thank you. For mistreating Judy as a child. She had this bad experience, and her family seems to have had bad experiences with foxes. And so the idea behind this prejudice being completely unfounded and just appalling and just preposterous and unbased, I think the movie does a good job of painting it as more nuanced than that, which I greatly appreciate.
It's almost saying they have a basis, it's just not a good enough one.
Sure.
But they do have one. And here's where you can see why they have that one, the bias that they have. It's not good enough, but they have it. They have something they're basing it on.
Yeah. And it's also not good enough for, and then that's the thing. You shouldn't approach other people with this mindset. And she kicks herself for doing that. But you also shouldn't hold that same person to this, because we meet that same character later and he's changed.
Yeah.
In my mind, this may not even be worth keeping in the episode, but I was bullied a bit as a kid, not a tremendous amount, but a bit. And one of the guys who bullied me the most ruthlessly in some ways, was African-American. Would it be fair for me to apply that across the board to other people of that race? Absolutely not. If I saw him today, would it be fair for me to apply that behavior of a 12-year-old to a grown man? No, I'm sure he's changed. I really hope he's changed at the very least.
If not, there's a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Has nothing to do with his skin color. It has to do with his choices.
Sure. Sure. I mean, I hope that his heart has changed, and I hope his approach has changed, because he didn't treat me well. He didn't treat people well in general. It wasn't just me, but, and anyway, for me, it seemed like a pretty significant tie-in, to say that, look, people may have a basis for their perceived prejudice, but that doesn't make the prejudice okay. A reason is not an excuse. And in this case, we see a lot of racially charged conversation that is centered on whether or not there's a basis for it, or there's a reason for it, making that into an excuse for racially charged behavior. And I think that that's really shameful. And I think Scripture speaks pretty clearly to issues of race, regardless of what people who haven't read the Bible closely think. We're told that there is no Jew and no Greek in the kingdom of heaven. We are all in the body of Christ.
Particularly in the church. There
Yes.
should be absolutely no distinction. I think we see God's not a respecter of persons and that he saves people from every tribe and tongue. So we should treat all people as image bearers of God. All these things that should really kill racism
Sure.
before it gets out the gate if we're taking scripture seriously. But then even, and it's shameful when you hear about racial kind of things happening even within the church. In Christ, there is no distinction whatsoever, and that your primary identifier is that you're in Christ above anything else. And it's one of the frustrating things with some of the, we don't want to talk about the news too much, but there's things that go around that are controversial, and it'll get this group of people riled up against this other group of people, and they'll want to go back and forth about who was unjust in the situation and things like that. And you'll have people saying that they don't even feel comfortable worshiping around people of the other race.
Oh man.
From them. And on the one hand I can be sympathetic to that, but on the other hand I can go, no, I don't care what your experience is. Like, you might have a reason, but it's not a good enough reason to say that.
Yeah.
Because if we're in Christ, and if someone else in that church is treating you in a way that exemplifies that, then you can go to them and show them from the scripture how they're not living in light of what Christ has done for them. But as far as when you're in corporate worship with your brothers and sisters in Christ, that should be the safest place you could possibly be in.
Absolutely.
I get that it might not feel that way, but I would argue that there's some wrongness there for not feeling that way, and that you're allowing some fear from some cultural narrative to come in and say, I would, to me, and this isn't just me like tooting my own horn and being like, oh, look at me, I'm so open and accepting of everybody, but I really don't see it, especially in church. I don't see it. Like, there is no color there to me. Like, it's just, that's this person, this is that person. It's just, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. It doesn't affect
If
me.
I'm being honest, are there times in other situations where I do see it? Sure, it happens. I think that's part of humans categorize things, and they want to put past experience on future experience and make some sort of judgment about what they can expect to happen and things like that. It doesn't make it right. But in Christ, my goodness.
Yeah.
Come on.
Absolutely. That's shameful.
Yeah.
And I think that, there's a lot as well with there's a narrative I want to get to about what happens with the character Bellwether, which I was curious about because I've heard the term before, and it refers to the lead sheep and the one that has a bell. And so it makes sense, for the character being a sheep, but also I think it's pretty telling for the fact that this is the leader in many ways of the prey. This town of Zootopia is 90% prey, 10% predator, a not accidental percentage, I think, given the message of what's being portrayed. So again, if you've somehow gotten this far without seeing the movie, weird, but we're going to spoil one of the big reveals here. The character of Bellwether is behind the entire going savage pandemic or whatever, because what she's doing is she is making it appear that they are going back to their original nature, such that Judy observes that and makes the press statement. But what she's doing is actually, and again, I'm kind of amazed with all the controversy that I've heard about this movie. No one seems to have addressed this, which I think is fascinating because I think that there's opinions about this. And so maybe they will now. What's happening is she is using fear in order to control people. But the way that this is occurring is the reason that people are being prejudiced has a basis. People are actively being mauled in the streets in this movie by predators, and only predators. There's a reason for why they are behaving this way. So to behave as if predators are not at least more susceptible to this issue, not granting it on them entirely, is completely logical. When Judy is making her press conference, I was actually not appalled by it. And I don't know if I was the only one. I was like, maybe their biology does have something to do with it. There is a trend. 100% of the ones who are going savage are predators.
That was a crazy thing because she's just speaking the facts that she had at the time.
Yeah.
She wasn't even saying for sure that it was only, she was just saying maybe it's a biological. I think she even says perhaps that's what's going on here. But we do know it is only predators.
Yeah. And she's saying
it's just facts.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's saying for whatever reason, they seem to be reverting back to this. Now, as more facts arise, we realize it's not actually the case. There's a chemical cause for this that would have affected, I think, would have affected the prey as well as the predators. But in this case, it seems to me that the facts being inconvenient shocked people, and that the anyway, I'm sorry, I'm jumping all over the
It's
place.
an inconvenient truth.
It's inconvenient, and that the reaction that she has to that. There's an awful lot of really over the top apologies in this movie, which I think is very telling of where our culture is.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry that I called you cute. Apparently, I'm not supposed to do that.
Right.
And when she's apologizing to Nick, it's this really over the top thing. It's like, look, I don't think she actually did anything wrong. Am I the only one who thinks that she actually was kind of right in what she was saying? However, maybe could have said it more sensitively. But anyway, regardless, what we come to find out is that Bellwether is controlling this. They're targeting prey in order to, they're targeting predators in order to make them the victims ultimately. The commentary there is that any basis that we have, if we were to contrast this in the real world, any basis that we have for prejudice against a particular ethnic group has nothing to do with that ethnic group and has everything to do with the majority. So the minority is never at fault. The majority is always at fault. Anyway, it works well within the context of this story.
Yeah.
And I hate to apply it too broadly to the real world because I don't know that that's necessarily what's being stated here, but I think it works very well as a plot device. But my concerns are if people are going to do what I did and take that and apply it to the larger world, then they're saying basically that any of the faults, any of the issues within any minority group are the fault of the majority actively targeting them. And again, we're talking about a movie about bunnies. I just said this character, the tiny little sheep, is responsible for this. So take it with a grain of salt, people.
I think, and it could be just a simple thing of trying to show a picture of controlling the narrative to make us fear a certain group of people and things like that, which it could be all that's getting at, but it does seem like it's directly their fault. It's directly this sheep's fault that this is all taking place, and you can't really lay any blame at the feet of the predator. Right. Actually, honestly,
and in this case, you can't. Absolutely, within the confines of the story, it's completely not their fault.
Yeah, right. And it's honestly, that's an interesting line of thought right there, because if a chemical making you do something means it's not your fault, then a materialistic worldview, nothing is anyone's fault because that's all your actions are. That's an interesting side conversation.
Oh, chemistry. It's almost as scary as biology.
Yeah, right. So, based on that, it's just chemicals firing in there that made these predators do that. And really what's different about us if it's all material. So that's an interesting thought as well. But I didn't even consider that. You're right. In this movie, the predators are never at fault, really, besides the fox early on that bullied Judy Hopps.
Maybe the bears and the criminals are at fault, the crime bosses and whatnot.
But the big problem that's being discussed, much like in our day, there's big problems being discussed, is ultimately not their fault or any individual that has that happen's fault. And in the context of the story, it isn't their fault. But that is an interesting theme. Just because it plays out that happens to be correct in this movie, you then have to say, well, what is that? What are they trying to say by that being correct? Yeah. They're saying they think that is correct then. Yeah. So it's interesting.
And to say that and for people to say that, and I believe this is what the gazelle character was saying, for her to paint all predators as this is shameful or is offensive or whatever. She never said that though. She never seemed to imply that. That was, expounded on from her words. Now, I know that there is probably one direction as far as racial tension that people might take this and apply it, which is, I think, well-founded. But I think that there's another direction that this could be applicable to, and that is the issue of Islamophobia. And I really don't want to jump into this because, again, it's just a can of worms I'm opening briefly. Yeah. And then casting it aside to, for the sake of time. But if we're considering this all towards an ethnic minority for, as it relates to local crime, that's one thing. But if we're applying this to say that the issues related to Islamophobia in our nation and, frankly, acts of Islamic extremism are, in fact, not the fault of the members perpetrating them, but are the fault of the majority, I think that can be a harmful narrative. And I don't know that anyone else is taking it that direction or if I'm just the only one going there with it. Anyway, I think that if you apply it there, it's a pretty harmful narrative.
I think it's also interesting what you're saying there too about if you criticize anything that's a problem in a particular culture, then you think that everyone in that culture has that problem.
Yes.
And which, like you're saying, Judy never said that. She said that it's only predators we're seeing this in. It's a problem. Maybe it has something biological. Who knows? She at no point did she say every predator is going to turn and kill you in a couple minutes. Like, you better be careful. She never says that, but that's how it gets. You can see it getting spun in the media in Zootopia, in the bunny movie. But you see that all the time as well. And there's probably things that we've said in this episode someone could probably spin that way.
Sure.
But that's not the case. We're saying that people are responsible for their own decisions, and there are a lot of environmental factors that go into making it hard for them to make the right decisions sometimes, though they're still responsible for their choices, and that we should try to be moving past these sorts of things and not seeing in such strict categorizing of this color is like this color is like that, and realizing that people are like image bearers of God, and that's what we should be more concerned with, and holding others responsible for what they're doing. But I think it's easy to take a statement of, and I'm not, I think it's well documented. I'm not a huge fan of Donald Trump, who is our president now. But one of the things that I'll defend him on was people had said, he said, people of this certain nationality are just terrible people that's coming over here to do terrible things. Well, he really never said that. No, I don't like him. I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
But he never said that.
Yeah.
He said that there are some. Is that true? Yeah. It's true. There are some, so maybe he had ill intent in saying that. Maybe he really secretly meant all of them are like that, but you don't know his heart. So lay off a little bit, but I think it happens all the time, and it could happen to anyone. If you say something someone doesn't like, they are going to blow it to the highest possible proportion it can be.
Yeah.
And as you see with Judy, it's not what she was saying.
Yes, absolutely.
It's interesting. I didn't even consider that either, that she had said one thing and then it was kind of extended to apply way further than it did.
And that's sort of where I went with that, because I'm thinking, all right, they're worried about people actively attacking people in the streets based solely on their race. What does that most closely parallel to today? And that's where I got to the whole Islamic extremism thing, because that's happening. And again, it's being discussed as only a racial issue and not as a cultural issue, which I think is a problem, because it is a culturally based. Anyway, longer conversation that's too serious for this podcast probably to have elsewhere.
Yeah.
But I just thought, I wonder if anyone else went that direction with it.
I think the important thing as a Christian, if you watch this film, to take away and maybe discuss with your kids is that, yes, there are actual differences between different groups of people. And sometimes we have a hard time getting along because we might think falsely wrong things about other people. Maybe we think wrong things about other people, but it causes us to act badly. All these things that separate us, the answer for that is found in Christ, because in Christ you're a new creation. There is no dividing wall. And so if people really want a solution to this problem, you might say it's, we all have, what is it, glass half full. We kind of have that in common. What was it she was speaking to?
We all make mistakes.
We all make
have
mistakes.
limitations.
We all have limitations. We all look at others poorly sometimes. However she was wording it, so we all have that in common. Well, the ultimate hope is not that we have the bare minimal of things in common. The ultimate hope is that we have a Savior in common.
Absolutely.
If you're a Christian, that's the answer to the problem that Zootopia is trying to show you. However you take it, if you take it as a racial problem, if you take it as a more overarching prejudicial problem, whatever it is, the answer is Christ and what his word says to us. So
absolutely. One thing that I think is interesting, as Disney movies tend to be, sometimes the most enduring aspect of the philosophy that they have to share is in the songs. Hakuna
Matata.
Thank you. Sorry, I had a mini little stroke there. Hakuna Matata, for example, everybody knows it means no worries. I mean, it's essentially the don't worry, be happy.
No right, no wrong, no rules for me.
There's all kinds of terrible lessons that can be taught in Disney songs. I think that the song Try Everything is a particularly interesting example of this, because if you take it at the face value of the only lyrics that people probably took away from this, which is the chorus, oh, try everything. Wait, what?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
And again, I'm sure that there was meant to be some caveat to that in the minds of the people. I'm sure that they're not going to advocate try crystal meth just because they made a Breaking Bad reference in this movie, which did not go unnoticed. Thank you, Disney. It's not just try everything, I would hope. But are we expecting people to suss that out for themselves? Are we expecting children to make that determination on their own when we've had to tell them that racism exists and is bad.
Right.
I think that it's risky to have a song that advocates trying everything. However, the verses, I think, add some clarity to that. So if you, like me, were maybe a little shocked and off put by the Gazelle song, Try Everything. Sorry, I thought it was really clever, the idea of the Gazelle. Although I was legitimately taken aback at the Tigers. People were worried about, some people in the group were upset about the risque acts of the Gazelle and dancing and stuff. I was more concerned about the male stripper Tigers. That was really awkward, not going to lie. Anyway, just because they were a little closer to people for whatever reason. Tony the Tiger got like Magic Mike there or something like that. But anyway, the whole issue of the song, Try Everything, I think that the verses actually have some decent message to them. Decent, not good, just decent. Possibly be worth a second glance. That's probably the most I'm going to say about that, because I don't want to try and like look up the lyrics right now and figure out which ones to say to what. But they do acknowledge that, look, we're going to make mistakes. We need to work through that. And moving forward is important, and trying to improve and not just give up. And I think that Judy's little speech at the end does a good job making that case. However, she does the typical Disney thing, which is look to yourself, look in yourself. Yeah. Change starts with you. I think that's important. Change does start with each of us. And in order for us to help change the world, we have to look in ourselves. If we want the church to improve, for example, in a particular way, if we want the church to be less hypocritical, what do we need to do? We need to look in our hearts and be less hypocritical. I think that applies to society as well. But if we're looking in our hearts for the solution, clearly we're looking in the wrong place, because our heart is the source of the problem, as was even shown in the confines of this fictional story. So are we the solution? No.
Right.
But can we potentially be part of the solution if we surrender to God's will? Yes. Is Disney going to make that case? No,
probably not. I think too, the song Try Everything, like you're saying, taking it at face value, which is all you're really going to get on a cursory glance. It's not a great song, but I think it still might not even be great with what I'm going to say, but it's a little bit better. I think it's saying anything you want to do, try it. Like you might fail, but try it anyway, because why not? Just try it.
Right.
Try everything you want to try. Still not the greatest message, because I don't think you should try everything just because you want to either. But I think it's basically saying if it's a thing that would be a good thing to do, and people are telling you might fail at it,
try anyway.
Yeah, try anyway. Maybe
and that's
you won't.
Important. Yes.
So I think in a sense that could be a good message, but again, it's very subjective. It depends on what you want to try.
Right. Yeah.
It depends on what you want to try then, which, there's no context there to tell you what would be an appropriate or inappropriate thing to try. So
absolutely. Yeah. Take it or leave it. It's an interesting commentary and people's kids are going to be singing it for years. So as you're hearing the song 1,000 times a day, parents, listen to the lyrics and have conversations with your kids about that once the age, at an appropriate age.
Yeah, definitely.
Stuff. Not to tell you how to parent, but I just did.
But we just did.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything that we missed, Richard?
I don't think so.
I think there's zero that we missed, except the Godfather reference. Nope. There we go. We got it.
There we go. Now you got it. Yeah. So next week, Deadpool, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones after.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, in the meantime, keep engaging media from a godly worldview, and remember, you are not a mindless consumer. Next week on Popcorn TV.
We will rule over all this land, and we will call it this land.
I think we should call it your grave.
Curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal.
Mine is an evil laugh. Now die! Oh, no, God!
Thanks for watching this episode of Popcorn Theology. For more content, subscribe on YouTube. Follow and interact on social media to help broaden the conversation. Check out our archive of past episodes at popcorntheology.com or wherever you listen to podcasts, and consider becoming a patron saint by supporting us on Patreon, which lets you interact, influence, and enjoy exclusive bonus content.